Friends, hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Marvin. If you're coming across my face for the first time, thanks for joining. Thanks for coming over on this platform. I welcome you with all of my heart. I'm grateful that you could spare that moment to just kind of have a conversation here with me. My name is Marvin, as I said. Today I'm talking about something slightly different. I'm talking about relationships. So that's a bit of a change of tone. All right, but it's absolutely necessary. But before I get into this, quick reminders once again, and as I say this, I want to express my humble gratitude for new subscribers that have come on board. You've recently subscribed. I'm really, really grateful for you. I owe you. And I do believe that we're going to be good friends and we'll build good relationships from this. So if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and like this video and other videos I've done. Let them go far and wide as we share good information for the goodness of our welfare. All right, and also send in comments so we can keep having conversations about these things. Today I'm on relationships. I have a video that I want you to see. I think this video must have been done about 5-6 months ago, but I've brought it back. None of these subjects or conversations or discussions or education is ever too old to use. So that's why I've come back to it. I've actually been wanting to do this for quite some time now. Part of the reason why I delayed was the quality of the video that I kept running into was not that good. It's a good thing to use and to see, and you're going to see it for yourself, but there was just something lacking about it, so I kind of was hesitating to use it. It's not pathetic or anything, it's just a little bit off. So you're going to see as you watch this video. But it's a video by a professional who talks about relationships in relation to this recent trend of what is called in the US as passport bros. I think it's a phenomenon that's growing. It's probably found in many other places, but I believe that it originated, the phenomenon of passport bros originated in the United States. And he's going to explain a little bit about what exactly it means. And initially, I've not watched any video whatsoever or seen anything or read anything in the papers or magazines or on social media, because for some reason I had a bad perception of what passport bros was. I would see videos here and there, but I would never open them or even go there. For some reason, I had a negative perception of the whole idea of passport bros. And even the person in the video I'm going to show you will actually explain that he had a similar experience. He's the one that helped me to have a healthy outlook of what the phenomenon actually was. So it's about passport bros. And so we'll quickly get into that clip. I have a few comments and few insights to share from this. For those of you who are of the African audience, those of you that have known me from back home and you're part of my following, which I'm grateful for, I'm using this opportunity to be able to create cultural exchange. And even those of us that are here in the United States or in the West countries like Canada, I have quite a lot of friends here who are Latino, who are African Americans, who are white, and they ask quite a lot of questions about what life is like in my country, in Zambia, or just in the continent at large of Africa. And I give them quite a lot of information and insight, and they're always intrigued by the differences in the traditions, cultures, and values and things like that. So for those of you who are from these different spheres of existence, this is an opportunity for great cultural exchange. These are things that empower us and prepare us for certain opportunities that come that we probably never expected. But some of you have ambitions of maybe having a life partner from Japan or from Brazil and different parts of the world. It's a good ambition. So a discussion like this could be very, very insightful and could prepare you for success. So I'm going to get into the video. Now, obviously, even before we get into this video, I want to say something important. I personally have never been, because this is really so much about dating. I personally have never been, for a large part of my life, even before I became a believer, I've never been in favor of the idea of dating. And, people found me to be a very controversial figure because I don't favor the idea of dating. I've always believed that the way to find a partner is to use the hunter's principle. And the hunter's principle is very simple. You aim shoot and kill, and take the loot home. That's just what I've always believed. So I've always thought that, and this is my own description, my own understanding of what this is. I've always had this impression that dating is gambling. And that's what it is for me. Dating is gambling. So there's a lot of inclination to dating in this presentation. So I'm just preparing it beforehand. But then at the end of the day, even though this is mostly about dating, if not entirely, there's some very, very helpful insights in terms of just understanding the mindsets of people, because a lot of us will always or often run into, as we are on the journey of looking for a mate or someone to date, if that's what you're looking for, we'll always be running into people that have so many different ideologies about life and philosophies about life. And we have to be ready, we have to understand where all these thinkings or this thinking is coming from. And also, just so you know, part of the reason why I'm sharing this video, which is probably the main objective here, is the fact that I realize that there are winds of change happening and they're affecting life all around. And so these winds of change are now forcing people in America, or men in America, mostly men in America, to leave America or leave the West. They are abandoning women in the West. And you're going to find out what the reasons are. So they are going to places such as Asia and Latin America, mostly, but I know that there's quite a good number of them that also go to Africa. I know some of those people personally. So this movement also is a big part of the global changes that are happening. I personally believe that this is part of the downfall of the Western Empire. That's what I believe. And so what it means for us, those of us in Africa, or even these other parts of the world, Latin America and Asia, is that these opportunities now, nature or God, as you would have it, is now presenting these opportunities to people outside because of the things that are going wrong in the West. And some of those things are going wrong even in relationships themselves. And I don't want to really spoil the video so much, but I can give you an example, for example, of the trend of swinging. I think you've heard about swinging, where couples swing, exchange partners and things like that. And there's just quite a number of other things that are going on. A number of people are now beginning to realize that those lifestyles are unhealthy. And so when you couple that with a number of other factors, such as the ones that you're going to find out in this video, the West has become a very unhealthy environment for relationships and even raising children. I have my own friends from Africa who, after getting married here, they are not sure that they want to raise their children in America because of the moral decay, just the compromise all around, just all kinds of things just being wrong. So, and this is part of the reason I believe that these passport bros are leaving now, going to Africa, Asia, Latin America to look for women there. It doesn't mean that women in those places don't have those problems, but I think that those problems are minimal, okay? And also this sends a message to those of you, my colleagues who are in Africa, because Africa has this problem of wanting to westernize itself or wanting to be Western in our lifestyle. And so people here are running away from the moral rot of the Western lifestyle. And you out there are always trying to imitate them, to look like them, walk like them, talk like them, and behave like them. So it's a warning to you, because if these men come out there and find out you also behave like these women, they're going to run away from you still. So this kind of helps us to really position ourselves, and I've said this before in talking about racism, development, and self-improvement and things like that. I've said this, that there are winds of change happening, that God is giving opportunity to others who have been marginalized, discriminated against, and whatnot, oppressed, but we have to be able to position ourselves correctly. And so having understanding such as what we're going to bring out from this video is extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. So let's go ahead. I said before, let's go ahead and see the video. Then I started talking again.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psych Hacks, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is passport bros and international dating. So this is a topic that has come up frequently in the comments of several of my videos, and it's a topic that I've been requested to discuss by many people over the last several months. If you're unfamiliar with the subject, passport bros is the collective term for a movement among Western, and specifically American men, who are increasingly pursuing mating and dating opportunities abroad. These are guys who are flying to places like South America and Southeast Asia and the Middle East in order to access sexual opportunities that they argue aren't available in their home country. And I'm going to respond to this phenomenon through the lens of my recent experiences spending a month in the country of Japan. Now, I'm not very knowledgeable about this phenomenon, but to be honest, there was always something about the Passport Bros movement that felt a little sleazy and pathetic. Really examining it, my perspective was similar to the prevailing attitude, which was something like, this movement was for guys who were too low status or unattractive to beat out their intrasexual competition here. They couldn't get laid in the States, so they basically engage in geo-arbitrage to leverage a relative advantage that wouldn't exist in their home country. My attitude was something like, only guys who couldn't get what they want from women here would need to uproot their whole lives and travel halfway around the world, which kind of made these men out to be conniving beta males. That was my attitude before spending a month in Japan. That is no longer my attitude now. Having spent a month in that country, I think I better understand where this movement might be coming from.
Okay, key thing that Dr. Taraban points out there is the health. And I hope that some of these things are not going to come out as if this is a bashing of women in the West. A lot of these things are designed to help. He brings out the issue of the quality of the women, the health, and them looking after themselves, being a user-friendly size, if you like. And those of you who don't know, you've never lived in America particularly, or in the West, I'm sure you've read stories, seen things on social media that there's a problem with the weight. And here, I really also must speak for the women, to be honest, because it's not really them alone who have this problem of weight. Even men have the problem of weight, okay? But it's just that life is like that. There are things that men can get away with that women cannot get away with. And there are things that women can get away with that men cannot get away with. That's just how life is. Nature ordained life to be that way. So when we talk about the issue of weight, it's mostly the men that find the weight of women a problem. And obviously, it's an individual thing that only people can explain. Individual persons can explain why that is a problem to them. But we know what the general difficulties are when it comes to weight. But Dr. Taraban connects that to the aspect of health. And I think that it's only healthy to have weight control. And it sounds to me that from his concern, the major issue is raising there is that if people are overweight, then obviously the likelihood that they're unhealthy is high. And so I think when you look at it from that point of view, it becomes a very, very genuine concern. Now, I'm going to come back in a different video and talk a little bit more about these things. And I'm sure that those of you listening to me speak right now, you're thinking about, okay, why does this affect the sex life and things like that? So I think on another platform or another video, we can go into a little bit more detail to talk about all the other effects of these things. Some people are not affected by the weight of their spouse, but most people are affected by it. But let's carry on.
Second, these women are feminine. They wear dresses and heels and makeup. They tend to dress more conservatively than Western women. No tight clothes, no showing a lot of skin. The feminine ideal there seems to be like softly elegant, flowing and modest and dignified. And these aren't 1950s housewives. These are women who, for the most part, are working professionals. They have modern ideas, they are educated and accomplished, but they haven't thrown out more traditional conceptualizations of female beauty. This is not something you can easily find in the West anymore, and you can't find it at all in the Bay Area at all. And I find feminine women very attractive. It resonates with me and inspires me to be even more masculine.
So I want to stop it, just pause right there. You know, when he talks about the dressing, you know, having lived in the US now in America for, you know, a few years, I personally also noticed this issue of dressing. And one of the things I used to ask friends was, the women here don't really dress like women. It's more common for women to dress like men, like they wear sports shoes or tackies and things like that, jeans and just a t-shirt. And really there's nothing wrong with dressing like that. There's a place where you dress like that, maybe at work, and I can imagine that a lot of these jobs that the women do here, they're jobs where they need to dress a certain way so they can work comfortably. So that's understandable. But Dr. Taraban there is talking about dressing in the social arena, where you're just socializing with people, whether it's at church or at a club or at a restaurant. I noticed that for women in America, that carries on. They still dress that way. And then also another aspect of that dressing, like you said, is the showing of flesh. And on that one, again, when we do another video and revisit these subjects, I'll say a lot more about that. But dressing is extremely important. You know, there's a saying, dress the way you want to be addressed. And so there's a measure of respect that you get from dressing. But also another aspect of it is, I believe that a woman should always dress for his man. And to dress for your man doesn't mean you show off flesh. My firm belief is that when a woman dresses in a manner that shows flesh all the time, part of the message in there is that I belong to a lot of people. Part of the message in there is I don't belong to you alone. But even if that's not the case, I always ask myself, why do you as a woman want everybody to see everything about your body? Why? For what reason? I mean, what are the benefits? You know what I'm saying? It's never made any sense to me that you, a woman who has a man in your life, want everybody to see everything on your body. For what reason? I've been troubled by the kind of dressing I've seen in America. And I have American friends who agree and confess that this part of America is a mess. It's a mess. So let's carry on and see what else he's going to say.
Third, the women in Japan are extremely respectful. Every woman I interacted with there was extremely warm and friendly. They were receptive to conversation, and they seemed to enjoy, or at least very effectively pretended to enjoy, speaking with me. Even more, they were solicitous about my feelings, and seemed concerned that I should enjoy the interaction as well. I didn't experience a single indifferent or disrespectful word, tone, or glance from a woman in a month. This made approaching and talking to women in Japan a much less fraught experience than it is in the US. The women I spoke to seemed to take pleasure in the attention and in the dialogue. Nothing about the interaction indicated that they were annoyed or offended that I was interested in talking to them.
The subject of respect, the issue of respect, that's probably the most important. That's probably the most important. That's probably even more important than the dressing. You know, and ladies, I have to tell you, being respectful makes you attractive. Being I don't know why people don't understand that. I mean, this applies even to men, but in this particular case, the issue is women. So don't get me wrong. Don't think I'm saying men should not be respectful. They should also be respectful. And in fact, I'll make another comment about respect and how men themselves actually provoke the lack of respect from women. We talk about all of those things, especially when I come and do a full video on just these four things that we're going to listen to on this particular video. He says something very important in line with the issue of respect that he just brought up here. He talks about tone of voice, extremely important. And I can agree with him. With my experience in America, I've seen these things. The tone of voice, the body language, the gestures, the facial expressions. All of those things, they sum up into the issue of respect. A person can be disrespectful just by their facial expression. And these kinds of facial expressions are very, very common in America, especially with this thing of racial tensions. It's even worse. And so maybe that's partly why respect is a bit of an issue in the country. But I'm still going to add on a few more things on the issue of respect. I just want to allow him to finish his point there.
Fourth, while a kind of chivalry exists in Japan, it's an inverted version of what we have here. In Japan, men come first, women come second. It's difficult to appreciate how deeply the romantic ideology permeates our manners until you go to a completely different culture. For instance, one day I was walking towards the main entrance of a building at pretty much the same time as a woman. My natural instinct was to get there first and hold the door open for her. However, when I did so, she refused to walk through it, making a show of great embarrassment. And I later realized that in that culture, it would have been embarrassing for her if I had allowed myself to disrespect myself in that way for her sake. However, our way of doing things is just as unnatural to Japanese sensibilities. That's starting to change more and more as Western ideologies continue to infiltrate Japanese society. But the important thing here is to understand that a lot of what many people believe to be the natural dynamic between men and women is really very culturally bounded and culturally specific. And to be honest, it felt good to be honored for being a man. Like, it's not a bad thing to be a man in Japan. In fact, it seems to come with some privileges that are more commensurate to the responsibilities that men generally take on. So let's recap. On the whole, Japanese women are slender and physically fit, feminine and demure, friendly and courteous, and respectful and appreciative. Not all Japanese women, I'm sure, but the vast majority of them as far as I could tell. When I spoke with them, the feeling I got was that they felt lucky to be interacting with me, which is a total reversal of the attitude you generally encounter in the West. I've gone on a lot of dates in my day, and the prevailing vibes were either A, that I should feel lucky that the woman was allowing me to buy her a drink, or B, that the woman needed to make sure I could give her what she wanted by conducting the date like a job interview. There's a lot of entitlement and narcissism here. It's all about her. On the other hand, my sense is that in Japan, women feel grateful for the opportunity to be there, grateful for the opportunity to be considered as a potential partner. It was extremely refreshing, to say the least.
Yeah, so I mean, the subject of respect is going to be a big part of the next video that I'm going to do to share with you a little bit more. And respect is obviously affected by cultural norms and traditional values and things like that. But respect is respect, and respect must be there in not only relationships and marriage, but also in the interactions. I believe that women should just respect men, irrespective of what the relationship is, whether it's just friendship, whether the person is just a workmate. And it's at workplaces and in social places of interactions, such as the store, the mall. It's in those places where you kind of see this kind of disrespect. So don't be mistaken to think that the subject of respect is simply referring to the interaction of people in a relationship or who are married. He's talking all round. You see these bad gestures in public places from women. And like I said, even men have these habits that are disrespectful, and gestures and body language and mannerisms and behavior. But in this particular case, we are focused on the women. But also let me add this, with regards to respect, and I have to speak for women on this one, because I also don't want it to come out like we're just bashing women, particularly American women or women in the West. This is to really just open up the eyes of those who are wise and those who are willing to learn, so they can enrich their prospects and enrich their chances of having successful relationships. That's what the purpose is here. We're not here to bash people or denounce people, demonize anyone, demonize women. That's not the goal. But at the end of the day, language is a difficult thing. We might use words that are offensive. We think that we're using the right word, but then for some people it's offensive and things like that. I just ask you to have an open heart, okay, and be open-minded. But speaking for women, and on this one I have to defend women in America, just on this aspect alone, all right? There's just generally disrespect in America all around. I personally have never liked what I've seen when you watch basketball on TV, even when you go to the arena itself, how women are paraded almost half naked. You look at the cheerleaders. I mean, the first time I saw that, I asked a friend of mine, was like, why do they have to portray women as sex objects during a sports game? What's the purpose for that? What is the purpose for that? And on the outlook of it, it looks like it's for money. It's to be able to attract people to come in or men to come in. It's really money oriented, which for me is very disrespectful to a woman. So from that aspect alone, and this happens even in baseball, football, and even in other sports disciplines. And for me, that overall is disrespect of a woman. You cannot strip a woman to simply promote a sport. No. And then you add to the fact that there are restaurants, I don't want to name them, but we know there are restaurants in America and the West where their attire, the attire of the women who serve at the tables is literally like they're naked. I mean, for what reason? So there's so many aspects of the social fabric of America where women are portrayed as sex symbols, where they're portrayed as having easy access, like they can easily be accessed, like we can see anything about them without having to pay anything for nothing. Like their sensitive parts are just dangling in public like that. It's extremely disrespectful. And I can imagine that in ways that we don't even see, that comes back in a way that women become disrespectful towards people or towards men. Because at the end of the day, I can imagine with those kinds of jobs, there are code names, people write them texts or talk about them on social media, call them all kinds of names, or make comments about their body parts, their body shapes, which in America they call body shaming. I'm sure that they're subjected to things like that. So you can imagine that all of those things, when you put all of those things together, it will make women react in a certain way that looks disrespectful towards men. And again, that's something that we need to talk about on a broader basis to be able to give you the understanding of what exactly this problem is. But I've never liked this issue of portraying women as sex objects. It's just ridiculous, to be honest. And even though I'm defending women on this, isn't it funny that the people who don't react to that is the women? Because the women should be marching and protesting and saying, why are you dangling women as sex objects? It's disrespectful. Women should be protesting everywhere about that phenomenon. It's just not right. But who am I to say it shouldn't happen? Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to leave it at the point where he talks about how, at least in the place that he went to, which is Japan, men come first. In the West, in America, that ideology is always opposed or contested. And I think that there's a lack of understanding as to what it really means to put a man first. I believe that men were designed to lead. I remember when I just arrived in America, it's about like maybe a month or so, and I started to notice a lot of different things. But one of the things I was noticing was the dynamics of relationships and how that the divorce is so high, the breaking up of relationships is so high, the rate is so high. People break up as if they're changing a shirt or changing oil in the engine of a car. Like, because you see it even on social media. You hear people talking about, oh, I broke up, I'm with someone else. 3 months, oh, we broke up, I'm with someone else. Like, what? No, I don't know. God, I mean, and then these things look normal, but they're not. These things look normal, but they're not. But I want to zero in on the issue of what it really means for a man to be first. Men by nature are designed to lead. So I said that when I came in, I noticed all these inconsistencies with American culture. And I was getting concerned. So I asked, and I would talk to one of my friends. But I remember we went to a church one time, and then this friend of mine was ministering in the church. And then out of the message that he preached, there was a lady that stood up, because normally in the church what they did was they always had a question and answer session where people would come and have a conversation over the preaching or the message of the sermon and interact that way and kind of give each other more detail and context and things like that for more understanding, to concretize the message in the hearts of the people. And so this lady stood up and asked a question and said, why is it that men are just not there in America? They're just not there. It's hard to find them. They're just not there. You don't feel their presence. And his answer stunned me. It stunned me because it confirmed that I was making the right judgment on what I was seeing in America. Because for some reason, I just felt like in America, women don't allow men to take their place. There's always this 50-50 issue, pulling and tugging, wanting to be even and equal and things like that. So his response to the question was stunning, and it was very simple. It was simple but stunning in effect. So she asked, why aren't men there? They're just not there. And he said, let them be men. As simple as that. He just said, let them be men. And I immediately agreed in my heart. I didn't even say anything. I said, I haven't been in America that long, but that sounds like it's accurate. What he said sounded very accurate. He simply said, let them be men. Now listen, guys, ladies, men don't have to be perfect to be men. So you can't disqualify them from being men because they are not perfect. Because you too are not perfect. Women too are not perfect. And they can't be disqualified for being women simply because they're not perfect. Okay, it's a lot to fill up, and there's a lot to say because it's really a wide subject. And like I said, some of these things may apply differently from culture to culture, region to region, continent to continent. But like I said in the beginning, for my African counterparts, I wanted to use this to kind of bring you into contact or into association with the differences that are there in America. A lot of you out there in Africa, you're dreaming of having an American man for a husband. These are some of the things that your mind needs to be opened up to, because there's always a culture shock. And so when I came here, I went through a culture shock where things were just so different. One of the things, and in America, things are extremely different. I've been to different parts of the world where things are different, but the differences are minimal. But in America, you will experience extreme differences. I'll give you some of the examples of the differences that I found, which like you start asking yourself. For example, look at the game of football. Football, as we know it, everywhere else outside of America, football, you kick it with the foot. It's what they call in America soccer. So football in America is called soccer. So there already you have a difference that affects the culture, all right? And then when you watch sports, especially basketball, because I don't watch any other sports anyway, so maybe I could be wrong about the other sports. But when I watch basketball, and you see on the screen, they always put the names of the teams on the screen, and they put a scoreboard. It's usually the I'm forgetting now. Is it the top left corner? I forget whether it's the top left, but the top corner, one of the top corners. they put the scoreboard there, and they put the names of the teams. And traditionally, what I know is you put the name of the home team first, and then the visiting team. America does it the other way around. And those are just two examples of how a lot of things in America are the opposite. I don't know what the purpose is for making things opposite, for switching things. I don't know. It's something I found really like, oh my God, why? You know, because you really can't see what the purposes are for switching these things. But on the issue of putting the home team second and then the visiting team first, here's why to me it doesn't make any sense. To me. Because in protocol, you don't introduce the visitor first. You introduce the home person first. So if a visiting president is coming to America, you first introduce the president of the United States of America, and then the visiting president. You can't do it the other way around. So to switch protocol like that, it's like you wonder, but what is going on? So, but a lot of things in America are switched that way. So a lot of things as a result in America, they work the opposite way. And maybe that's partly because of that same climate or environment of changing things, switching things, spinning things all the time. Maybe that's why there's always this contest between men and women, where it seems that women are always wanting to be men, always trying to be men. Because that's what seems to happen most of the times. So you must understand, when men now start desiring to leave America, abandon American women, and go for women who are more laid back, more respectful, and just even in their dressing, it shows, you can understand the reasons why. It's like people have come to a point where it's killing them. They can't take it anymore. And so, last but not least, so I can not really stretch this too much for too long, is I want to give advice to women in the West. This is not a bashing, and it shouldn't be. We're here to teach each other. We're learning from each other. I believe that this situation, which is just the beginning, because like I've said before in other videos that I've done, the West is crumbling. The West is going down. Everything is just going into ruins. And I believe that what this should show to people in the West is that we are in a time where the people in the West, whether it's politicians, scientists, whoever, and people in relationships, should now humble themselves and realize they have a lot to learn from other people. A lot of my American friends will tell you, I tell them, you guys have a lot to learn from Africans. Especially when it comes to issues of humility and gentleness, patience, and things like that. These are traits that you hardly see in America. People are impatient in America. That also factors into the issue of respect, the lack of patience, where a relationship can start today over a small little thing. They've moved on, they found someone else. No patience, no endurance. So, people in the West, women in the West, you have a lot to learn from other people in Asia, Latin America, and Africa. So, we'll talk a lot more about these things, but this was just really an eye-opener, and I was using a professional to just come and bring out those nuggets that become very useful for our learning. And for those of us in Africa, like I've said, I'm desiring that the people out there will position themselves correctly. God is now bringing you these opportunities. You've gone for too long wondering, where's my mate coming from? Where's my husband or my wife coming from? And so God is increasing your playing field so you can find. And you can imagine it should be refreshing for those of you on the receiving end. Obviously, it should be refreshing because now the competition is stiff. You know, there was a time, I think about 10, maybe even more than that, years ago, where people said the ratio now had grown of men to women. It was now 1 to 7. Now it's even worse. Now it's probably around 1 to 15. There's 15 women to every man, maybe even 20, maybe even more. So it's a refreshment. It's refreshing to see that the winds of change are now giving you opportunity in Africa. But do not take up Western values, because when God brings these people, because remember the Bible says opportunity happens to all. Your opportunity now is opening up. If these men find you acting like Western women, they will run away from you, just like they're running away from them over here. But at the same time, on a positive note, for our women in the West, it's not the end. It's time to relearn. It's time to humble ourselves and learn these values and reposition ourselves and believe for opportunities to come back in God's mercy, because God is a merciful God. This should be a lesson for women in the West. Let's continue talking. Like I said, I'll come back in a different video to give a little bit more on the issues of respect and sex and in terms of how it relates to the health of having a good body, a healthy body, and things like that. And then we'll move on from there. This has been exciting. I really enjoyed this. I didn't even want to stop, but I have to stop, and then we'll do this next time. So have a good day. Thanks for being with me. Have a really, really good day. And if you can't have a good day, like I always say, at least have a day. So let's go catch the day.